Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to tonight's edition of HR Mentorship Learning Series. Tonight, we have the privilege of having a very special friend, colleague, and associate of mine, Tango Simeon, and he'll be speaking to us on a topic titled Strategic Visibility in the Workplace, the HR Perspective. Strategic Visibility in the Workplace, the HR Perspective. I would like to read a brief profile bio of Tango Simeon so that we can get better acquainted with his achievements and history so far. Tango is a lawyer and a certified coach from New Skills Academy USA. He also has a mini MBA from Techidia Institute, and he is a member of the Tara Institute of Personnel Management of Nigeria. Tango's expertise cuts across digital learning, training and development, talent and career management, performance management, workforce planning, business and corporate strategy, employee and industrial relations, business process analysis, legal compliance, leadership and transformational initiatives, project management and policy development, among others. In alignment with his passion for sustainable development goals on quality education, he founded Champs Pro Africa, an NGO which has its ethos predicated on cultivating Africa's next brand of innovative youth and achieve goals by providing platforms for access to education. He has provided support for over 4,000 undergraduates and young Nigerians professionals in the last few years. As a legal and business consultant, TG advised various existing and startup businesses as it relates to legal, HR, and business strategy. He's a partner with Champs Pro Consulting, the strategy, the HR consultant for Boundless Nexus, and the HR business partner for Eternal PLC. He also operates as a freelance consultant with Vicasa Global, a company that specializes in coaching and transformational HR. He previously worked in AB Offshore Marine, and he was a graduate trainee with Banwo and Ighodalo, one of Nigeria's leading firms. At his leisure, TG has appetite for mentoring through public speaking, teaching, and writing with his popular fellow young professionals on his online platform. He is an ardent Chelsea fan, and he loves cooking. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm excited, elated, delighted to present our facilitator for tonight, Tango Simeon. You have the floor, my brother.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Please confirm if you can hear me, sir.
Just loud and clear.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone. And thank you, Mr. Oluyemi, for this platform, for having me here in HR Mentorship. It's been a pleasure to be on this platform. And I will jump right into it. Since Mr. Oluyemi said that we are not going to retreat on any point, for people that are still joining, they might catch up in the recording. I'm just going to give more like an overview of what we're going to be doing today. As already read in the profile, my name is Tango Simeon. I'm a lawyer, a HR and a business consultant, and those are the areas I'm trying to build my visibility in. We are going to be extrapolating on visibility, so it's also okay to flow in that direction. All right, so okay, this topic today is one that I'm passionate about. Most times when I go for trainings, even for undergraduates and young graduates, whenever I'm speaking, I try to let them understand about the importance of strategic visibility in the workplace. That would be the first angle of the presentation, but because also we might have some HR personnel here, there will also be the HR perspective that is going to be added to it. So by the end of this presentation, you should have been able to understand and learn what it means to have or build strategic visibility in the workplace. And it's not just limited to the workplace. Anywhere you find yourself, it's always important to it's always important to build that strategic visibility. This presentation is going to be in less than 40 minutes or 45 minutes will be done. So please stay with me. In less than 45 minutes will be done, and then we'll be open for questions. And one thing I can assure you is that you will leave with at least one thing that you can begin to practicalize in your career or in your life, right? So let's just jump right into it and start. So trying to, sorry, 1 minute. Go to the next slide. Okay, so the route we are going to take in this presentation is introduction, who are you? Then we look at the strategic ways to build visibility. We look at it from the HR perspective. We look at commercial awareness and business acumen for HR. And then there is the conclusion. But like I said, because there might be some people here that are not even HR professionals, we are just going to start with a generic way of how to build visibility in the workplace. But in the course of this presentation, we might go ahead to limit it to the HR perspective because I have passion for HR. This is why I kind of, from time immemorial, made a little bit of a switch from corporate law or from the general law perspective and had to take into the human resources because I believe that human resources plays a pivotal role in the success of the organization. But sadly, it seems that most HR professionals do not even understand that they have such power to influence a lot in the organization, right? So we'll look at the HR perspective and then the commercial awareness and business acumen for HR. Then there is conclusion and I'll be out of your face this evening. So please stay with me as we go right into it. Right, so I'm just going to start by telling us a story. This is one of the stories I heard from my colleague. We went to school together in University of Nigeria. So we were also serving in the same local government. So one of these days back then, when we came for our clearance at Obalende local government, it was like, TG, I need to tell you something. I just need to discuss something with you because something is really bothering me. I was like, what is it? It was like, I did not know that all these things we've been talking about, visibility, is actually very important in the workplace. I was like, what's happened? So he said that as corpers, there were about 9 of them. They were lawyers. Now, they were employed by one of Nigerian's finest law firm, Aluko and Oyebode. I will just mention the name of the law firm for a start, right? And then they were just being taken around for something like the onboarding and all that stuff. Then one of these moments, they were told that the managing partner was going to be with them the next day and they should get ready. So the next day, everybody was like, oh, managing partner. They definitely prepared. But there was this guy, right from his dressing, the way he was going, the way he was appearing that day, something looked different than the normal days. So it was like, everybody was like, what is this one up to? Until the moment they were being asked to introduce themselves and they were being asked a question by the managing partner. So every other person were just responding normally and just answering the questions. But this guy, when it was his own turn, he stood up, gave an introduction of who he is, the grade he made from law school and all that. And not just answering the question, but was able to dissect into so many other thoughts. Now, these are the kind of persons you will see, and you might even get annoyed and say that these are the people that do I too know. Like they just know how they have a way of just doing I too know. But the managing partner of that firm took cognizance of this guy, was very impressed. And this was the beginning of success for this guy, right? Because the managing partner went ahead and was talking about him in all the firm. Now, if you work in a law firm setting or if you work in a place where the partners are already talking about you, they know you, then you know that you are actually on a very good route to success. And to tell you how this was, like the managing partner at some point had to send the guy to MTN, send him to MTN as a secondment to just do something and build his career there. It was just that one moment that he had to maximize and he became visible in the firm. Right. So what we're talking about this evening about strategic visibility is very, very, very important. It's something I've experienced in my life, and I'll just be sharing few tips, and then I'll be out of your face. So the first one is, I would like us to know this, in your career trajectory, your visibility is as important as your ability, right? I've been in a situation where we are only told to improve our ability in work. We are to do things to improve our ability. But one thing I want you to understand is that if it's only your ability that you're improving and there's no visibility to portray that ability, then people will not know you, right? So your work will not always speak for you. It is the work you speak of that will speak for you. I have people that will always say, if I'm good, people will get to meet me. I can agree to an extent if you've established something, but as a young professional or as someone that is already starting or you're still building something, your work will not speak for you if you don't make noise about what you do. Your work will not speak for you if you don't talk about what you do, right? So don't always say that my work will speak for me. You have to be sure that people even understand what you do as a professional. Now, you might say that you are a HR person or you do this. Who and who can say that if they have a particular need that concerns your work, they will reach out to you? You will be the first person they will think about, right? So, and there's something I've always known, right? You get paid for invisible work, but you're promoted for your visible work. Most times you see in the company, people are complaining this one, right? Promotion is all about visibility, right? People have to perceive, people have to see that you're actually good in what you do, right? This is what we know about what strategic visibility. And there's one scripture I'm just going to talk about, right? It's no apologies to that, but one of the scriptures that inspire me so much is the scripture that says, let your light so shine that men will see your good works, right? The important thing to note here is that if your light is not shining, then men cannot even see your good works. So the first question you begin to ask yourself is, have you tuned down your lights, or is your light even shining bright? Because the kings now, if the kings want to come to your work, they will come to the brightness of your work. So how have you been able to make your work visible out there, that people know that this is what you do? And I'll use myself as an instance. I studied law, but in the course of my studies, towards my third year, fourth year, I started doing employment law. I did employment law in my fourth year. In my final year, I wrote a thesis on employment law that has to do with human resources and all that. I kind of knew what I was trying to get myself into. I was trying to carve a niche for myself. I was trying to be visible, because law is very versatile, right? If you think that you can be a master of all the various aspects of law, you might be lost in it, right? So I had to tell myself, this is where I want to be visible. This is where I want to be known for, right? So currently today, even amongst my colleagues, if they have problems that have to do with maybe employment law, human resources, and other business analysis, they will come to me, right? Because I've tried to distinguish and make the things I do very, very visible. This is something I wish that people can begin to learn how to maximize, right? So if people know what you do, they will begin to recommend you. So we'll quickly go to the first question: who are you? I always ask these questions to people. Who are you? Now, because if you don't even understand who you are, you cannot even recommend yourself to other people. Now, the following questions that will come is, do you have a brand? How visible is your brand? Have you built a story around your brand? Do people know your brand, and can people recommend your brand to you? These are questions I would like you to begin to answer in your mind. Do you have a brand? Yes, you are a HR person. You work in a particular place, but in what you're doing, are you building a brand around it? Don't just say, I'm a HR person, or I work as this, maybe a talent recruitment or something like that. Now, even as you're doing that, you have to build a brand around it. You have to begin to build a brand around what you do, right? Because once you begin to do this is when people will begin to identify with your brand. Now, I always tell people that you don't just go to work. You are a corporate brand on your own self. You are the CEO of your brand. Now, a lot of things are going to be very, 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 very important as it concerns building your brand as a person. So brand is not just for companies. And if you understand the importance of branding, you know that companies invest a lot in building their brand. But it seems that most times individuals don't even understand that they can build a personal brand, and people will begin to identify with their brand, right? There are so many instances, there are so many people I can give you. The host of the HR mentorship platform has a brand. If you think about Mr. Oluyemi Adeoshin, there are so many things that can come to your mind based on the things he's doing, based on the brand that he's building out there. So if you begin to ask yourself, am I building a brand based on the work that I'm doing? Don't think that I am too small to build a brand, or I don't have any experience to start carving a niche and building a brand around what I do. The thing that I would like you to understand this evening is whatever you find yourself, whatever job description that you've been given in terms of what you're meant to do, begin to think of how you're going to build a brand around it. This was what applied to me. I told myself, okay, if people think about me, I want them to think about HR, business consulting, and the various aspects of legal in terms of employment law. This is the kind of brand I'm trying to build for myself. So I ask people out there, what brand are you portraying? Do you have your profile? I used to ask people sometimes, can you send me your bio? It will take them like 15 minutes, 1 hour, sometimes forever to even send their bio. Now, you have to be intentional about these things if you want to skyrocket in your career, because opportunities are flying every time. And one of the things I've learned is that people can become poor in their career, or people can become poor in life when they pass over opportunities repeatedly, right? That is the definition of poor. When you're passing over opportunities repeatedly, that means you are not ready to maximize a lot of opportunities. So I want you to answer these questions even as we continue to dissect on today's topic, right? What is your brand? Do you have a brand? And then if you have a brand, how visible is your brand? There are so many ways, there are so many platforms of how you can make your brands very visible. One of the most important one that still works for me today and works for so many people is LinkedIn. Now, most times when I send out proposals to people, when I send out jobs, some things to people to give me contracts or projects, well, one of the things they will ask me is, can you share your LinkedIn profile? Now, I'm not always scared to do that. Why? Because I'm very intentional how I present myself out there, right? So because I'm also very intentional about the brand I'm trying to build. So whenever things are not associated to my brand, I always try to disassociate myself so it doesn't tarnish my brand image. Now, because it is when you build your brand that people can begin to recommend you to these various brands. So please, I would like you to note these questions and you begin to answer it. Do you have a brand? How visible is your brand? Have you built a story around your brand? This is more like the inspiration surrounding your brand, because yes, there must be a why. Why are you doing this? Why do you have a brand, right? This will be the story attached to your brand. Then, do people know your brand? Please, I will say this today. If you have a brand, make noise about it. You know, sometimes people are too humble, or they don't want to appear as if they are too forward, or as if that they are too loud about what they do. No. Now, in this stage of your career, maybe when you get to the likes of the Oluyemis, when you're up to 15 years, 20 years experience, people, you might have built a consistent brand. But for people like me who are still starting in this game, we are meant to make noise with our brand. Because if you don't make noise with your brand, people will not have that top of the mind awareness about what you do, right? But when you begin to make noise, when people begin to know that you do this, when they have a problem, when they have something they want to do, you will always come to their mind and they will recommend you. Now, on the side of working in 9-to-5 job, I have some consulting firm that I run. I mean, like, it's not even that out there yet, but 95% of the job I've done for people, they always come by recommendation, right? Because after doing something, I will always try to communicate my brand to people. Even if we are communicating and it has nothing to do with work, in one way or the other, I will always try to chip in my brand and tell you this is what I do, right? So please try to answer these questions. And if you don't have a brand, begin to be intentional in building your brand. So we'll go to the next one. I won't for me here, this is my brand. This is more like my profile. It is out there and so many things. I won't waste time here because Mr. Oluyemi has already read this, but it's very important to be intentional about the brand that you're putting out there. It is very important. Now we'll go to the points. Now, what are the various strategic ways to build visibility? Now we are going to actually dissect into this topic. What are some of the strategic ways to build visibility in the workplace or in various areas you find yourself? Now, these are things that has worked for me, not just in my workplace, in various places that I've found myself, right? I might come into a place as a new person, but once I begin to apply these principles, because principles are universal, one thing you need to understand about principles is that it doesn't respect your religion, doesn't respect whether you do things. So once you're applying that principle, right, it is an explanation to success, right? Principles are explanations to success. Excuses might be the explanation to failure, right? If you are given excuses from time to time, it might be the explanation to failure. But once you want to hit success, right, you begin to abide by these principles. You might not agree with them, but once they are a universal principle, then it means that it can work for you. So let us extrapolate on the various strategic ways to build visibility. Now, the first one is build a strategic presence. build a strategic presence. And I was very intentional. If you're here and you've watched the movie Suits, right, you will understand that Harvey, the person I have in my picture, is one person that you can say has a lot of strategic presence. If you go and watch the movie, you will hear a lot of quotes, a lot of things he was saying around strategic presence. And this is very important, guys. This cannot be overemphasized because it works. It works like magic. You must learn to build a strategic presence. So if you come into a room, there must be something strategic to identify you. There must be something strategic to announce you. Right now, forgive me, I have to be biased here. I'm so much passionate about undergraduates and young professionals. And I'll always say this, right? For some people that have these like 20 years, 15 years of experience, even 10 years, right? They might have consistently built something that works for them, that even if some things are not applicable, they have been consistent. But for some people like me who are still trying to build a career, that means we must have built that word, strong sense of what? Strategic presence. Now, if you come into a room, if you come to work, do you appear as someone that has a strategic presence? I'll use myself as an instance and give some instances here. And we'll also use some other people's career that I've interacted with, right? So from a very, very young age, one thing I learned is that you always have to make a good first impression. Now, and it will take years to, or even so much trust to overcome a bad impression you make at the very first time, right? So I was taught at a very young age that you should always learn how to make a very good first impression. And one of the things I'm going to start with in building a strategic presence is having a sense of good dressing. Now, this is very important for especially, and I will keep saying it, for young professionals who are still trying to climb their ladder. You can't live your life by chance and you expect people to give you a chance, right? You can't always live your life by chance and you expect people to give you a chance. No, you have to be very intentional in how you're going to build your presence. And one of the ways to build your presence is by having that power dressing, good dressing, right? So if you appear in a place, you can make that presence. Now, I'm going to say something. So when I was still serving, I was employed by a company, and then during my first day at work, I was now introduced and I was shown my office. One of the first things my colleague or my soon-to-be colleague said there was like, wow, you are too dressed to be a copper. Are you sure that you've not been working somewhere else or stuff like that? I just laughed. But these are the things you begin to do and you begin to make an impression. And good dressing doesn't mean that you're going to break the bank to dress very well. It just means that you're going to be very intentional with the way you appear out there. You're going to be very intentional about it, right? So I tell people, if you want to be functional in anything you do, you have to be very much intentional about it. So good dressing cannot be overemphasized, right? So whether you are a girl, whether you're a guy, you must invest in having that word strategic presence. It has to do with your looks. It has to do with a lot of things. So, but the goal is that when you appear in a room, when you come to work, when you are in a particular place, you have to have that presence. Now, the work life is beginning to tone down. I know people don't do much of corporate outfits. They do much of casual, but even if you're going to do a casual dressing, please let it be a business casual, right? Even if you're going to be on a casual, let's have something that will distinguish you. Winston Churchill, if you always see him from time to time, you always know that he's someone that wears a three-piece suit. From time to time, you always see him with a three-piece suit because that is the brand, that is the way he makes his own presence. Now, if you look at so many people out there, even the people we admire, they understand this principle very well. So one of the things I'll be asking you is, what are the various ways you can use to build a strategic presence? Now, so many things can apply to you. I tell people, even the way you walk, can, like, sorry, apologies, but I have to say this, right? Some people don't even know how to walk. They waka, they don't walk, right? They just appear anyhow. They just walk anyhow, not being intentional how they appear in a certain room or how they are perceived by people, right? So strategic presence goes a long way in helping you build strategic visibility, right? In the workplace, you might think that people are not taking notice, but they are taking notice. Now, I'm going to say this. and I know I might even have some of my colleagues here. So there was a day we were doing a culture clinic in my organization, and we were just working on discussing on some things. Then our MD was going to say something. So before I introduced him, I said something, sir, you are looking so dapper this evening, and we love your outfit. Okay, I love your outfit. So the next thing when he came on board to say something was like, well, TG, thanks for your compliments. We are all trying to learn from you. That was sort of what he said. And after that, some people came to me and we were discussing about it on some various things on how he has been able to take notes. Now, I'm not saying that you should go and break the bank to look expensive. I'm just saying that you have to be very intentional in the way you appear, because if you're going to make a good impression, it goes a long way. It goes a long way in the way you appear to people, right? So even the way you are out there, the way people perceive you is very, very important, because perception is akin to reality. So that's the first one. I'm trying to rush to keep to time. The second one is build a strategic communication skills. Now, if you're going to be visible out there, you must learn how to communicate. In fact, everything you do in life boils down to communication. If you don't know how to communicate, I don't know how you're going to be able to communicate your thought pattern, how you're going to be able to do what? Influence people in the kind of things you say. As a HR professional, one of our hallmarks is that we must learn how to communicate to people. Communication is very, very important. So if you're going to have that strategic visibility in the workplace, you must learn how to communicate. Now, for communication, I'd like to talk about some things. You know, communication is more than just the words you express. It's also the impression you make. And there are different layers of communication. And it's also very important to note that it's only 7% of the words you say that have a great impact. So if you're saying something, if it's going to have impact, 7% is just attributed to the words you're saying. Now, 38% is attributed in how you are saying it, the passion, the tone of how you're communicating it. And the rest of the percentage is going to be, the rest of the 55% is going to be communicated in your expression, the expression of how you're saying what you're saying. So your words are just 7% when it comes to making and having an effect in whatever you're going to do. If you're going to do a presentation, just know that what you're saying is just 7% in the communication circle, right? But how you're saying it is what is going to be important. Very, very important. So some people just come and they talk. There is no passion attached to what they are saying. You can go ahead to say some things just to watch it. No. But if you're going to make some strategic impact, if you're going to make some influence, just understand that the words you're saying is not just all about what you're saying, but how you are saying it. That goes a long way in striking a very important impact in the heart of people. Now, but not just how you're saying it, but the expression coming from what you're saying is also going to be very, very what's important, right? So if you're actually going to be, if you're going to master your communication skills, I'm going to quickly run through some things you need to understand. Now, if you're talking, if you're communicating, you must learn how to make a strategic opener. A strategic opener. That means don't start your communication without don't just jump into your communication. Just plan how you're going to start your communication. It might be with a quote, it might be with a statistics, it might be with something, but always learn how to capture the attention of people when you're going to start a communication. So you must always learn to master what a strategic opener when you're communicating. Then, if you're communicating, ask yourself, what is the point I want to drive in this communication, right? So before you even start talking, make sure that that point is very visible, is very clear in your mind. That means the point you want to drive home by the end of this communication. The point you want, if you're communicating to your staff, you're communicating to anybody, by the time you're done communicating, what is that strategic point you would like them to leave by the end of that communication? You have to have this in your mind. So when you're talking, you are not just running around the bush, you are very strategic and you're trying to hit on that point. You're hitting it and you're repeating it so that it will drive the necessary impact you want when it comes to when it comes to communication. Then when you're making a presentation, it might be in so many ways. Have your strategic gesture. Have things that you're going to, don't just sit down and just talk. as you're talking, try to express yourself, because I've already established the fact that your words is just a little percentage of that it has just 7% impact in what you're trying to communicate, right? Other things are very, very important, right? You can start with lots of things, even if you're starting storytelling, statistics, facts, events that happened before, right? These things will help to impress it in the mind of the people you're communicating. Then always learn how to make a very important closure. Conclusion is very important when you're communicating. I love the fact that sometimes if you're communicating, after communicating, during your conclusion, learn how to reiterate your point one after the other, just to do what? Communicate it, because if you understand, repetition drives mastery. When you repeat things in the minds of people, it begins to drive what? Mastery. And that mastery will lead to a level of understanding, right? So some of the things you need to understand when it comes to communicating. And in your communication skills, you are becoming visible. In your communication skills, you are becoming visible, right? There was this instance when I was still in school, before I go to the next point, right? We were having a mock debate, right? So, and after the debate, the judge said something to one person. It was like, I didn't really understand what you said here, but I can tell you that I felt your passion for this whole debate. So how can you juxtapose not understanding something, but you felt the person's passion of what he was saying? The judge couldn't really understand what the guy was saying, because maybe he was missing the point, but the judge gave him credence to the passion of how he was communicating what, and guess what? He scored very important marks based on how he was able to communicate. Right? Communication is not just the words you speak, right? So before you come out to communicate, try to plan it. Try to have your pointers. These are the things I want to hit. These are the things, the impression I would like to make, right? This is one important way to build visibility. Now, I will rush to the next one. Strategic ways to build visibility. Be known for something. Be known for something. These are sort of interwoven, but I will try to explain my line of thoughts in this particular thing. And I'll start with an instance, right? So one day, my ED's driver met me. He was saying something to me. I heard what the ED was talking about you. And now, what was it that the ED said? It was like, okay, as they were driving to work, that's my ED and his driver and her driver, sorry. As they were driving to work, she was telling him that, oh, I am meant to have a meeting with TG this morning, but I didn't tell him about the meeting, but I'm meant to see him in the office at least by 7:45. And I just have this feeling that he will be there. Right. So when she came and the driver came, they saw me in the office, and later he was just telling me about it. And even my ED letter mentioned it to me that, oh, I had no fear because I kind of knew that you will be in the office by this time. And so we had the meeting, and it was a very urgent meeting that we had to have for some things that we needed to implement. Now, what am I trying to say is that in your workplace, always be known for something. Always be known for something. There was a time I was known in the office. That was when I was still serving as a copper, as a contract staff. I was always known as the person that will always ask a question whenever there is a culture clinic or whenever there is something. But I was intentional about it because I was trying to be known. There was a day we were discussing on something. All I wanted was to ask the then CEO, that's the chief operating officer, a question. I was listening so aptly that I wanted to ask him a question on something, right? So when they said, does anyone have a question, I immediately raised up my hand, and people like, I knew it. But for me, I was very intentional about it because I was trying to build my visibility. Now, I'm going to say this: don't be shy to be known for something. Don't be shy to be out there. You know, sometimes when we share people into groups, you will see some people that say that they will support the presentation, but they are not able to present. They are shying away from presenting. They will say that they will support in presenting, but when it's going to be who is going to be the focal points to present, they will shy away. Now, let me say something. You know, when a presentation goes very well, the person that will take all the glory is actually, or the perceived person, let me use that word, that might take all the accolades will be the person that presented. Now, but when a presentation goes wrong, it won't just be that person. They'll start asking who gave you this data, who are the team members that prepared all these things for that presentation. So guys, don't be shy to be out there. Whenever there's a presentation, don't be shy to be at the forefront to even do those presentations. You are building your visibility. You are building your brand. You are being known for something, right? So this is very, very important. So begin to identify, let people identify you with some of the things that they say, oh, when it comes to this, I can say that this person is known for it. So what are you known for? Is the question I will be asking you this evening. And these are the various ways to build your visibility. Remember what I said when I started was like, your ability, your visibility, sorry, is as important as your ability. Your ability is that you're developing yourself, you're improving yourself. But if you're constantly improving yourself and people don't know you for what you're improving yourself for, that means you're just going to be surrounded by something, right? So, but when you are known for some things, that is when people will begin to recommend you. Visibility, some people might say, oh, I am an introvert, I don't like to be out there and stuff. I can understand that, I can respect that. But when you want to build a brand that people will know for, or when you want to begin to command the attention of others, you must be out there. You must be out there. It is non-negotiable. You must begin to do things that will make your brand visible out there. This is very, very important. It might be to your compelling, the things you present online. It might be the way you interact in discussions. There are so many things that can help you to improve your visibility. Now, in the workplace, I'm trying to drive down to the HR perspective now. In the workplace, the HR is very strategic. They are focal to a lot of things. But sometimes the HR, they are not maximizing this visibility. They are not maximizing this platform, or they are not informed enough for this platform. And one thing I normally say is that don't beg for the platform when you're not informed enough. So even before you begin to assess some things, be sure that you are very well informed so that you can maximize that platform. And this is a reason I have a passion for HR, right? And I was very, very intentional. I've already said it before that I was very, very intentional on how I wanted to transition from some general aspect of law to some specific aspect of law as it relates to human resources. So I started building myself towards that. I started building myself. I started networking. One of the ways to be very much strategically visible is your networking. Now, networking, the power of your networks can be determined by your networking, right? So some people will say, oh, I don't like to be out there. I don't like to meet people. But believe me, some of the best jobs we've gotten, some of the best recommendations, some of the best projects we've handled, they've come from recommendation based on networking. That is something I do, right? From time to time, if I go to an event and I meet someone new, before that day is ending, I will send the person a text message recalling how we met that day and recalling how the things we discussed and how it has impacted me, right? So now, when I worked in a law firm briefly, in one of the Nigerian top law firms, it wasn't based on because I went through the interview, but it was someone that took me and introduced me to the HR and said, interview this guy. I feel like when I met him, he was good, this. That was how I got that access. Now, if you know how competitive it is to even get into some of these top law firms, you begin to ask yourself. But it was through networking. And some of those networks, I am so very much consistent in trying to reach out to them, send them birthday wishes and stuff like that, because I know tomorrow I might need them. And just one recommendation like this might put you out there, right? Yes, you have the ability, you are good. That you can't take away that fact that you need to improve yourself and consistently develop yourself. But sometimes it is your visibility that will help you to project that ability. Or it is your networking based on visibility that will help people to even know that you are good. So this is very, very important. But I'm going to rush into the HR perspective of visibility. And this is actually one of the fulcrum of why I came up with this presentation, right? As HR, we need to be very intentional in our visibility, right? But I gave the generic perspective. Now I'm trying to narrow it down to the HR perspective. Now, I did a research where I discovered about some perception people have about human resources. Now, I'm going to say this respectfully. Like I already said before, it seems like some HR professionals are not maximizing the platform of what they can do as HR professionals. There was an argument that happened in one of our groups, in the HR mentorship group. I think that's HR mentorship 6 or something. So there were a series of arguments and people were giving their opinions respectfully, right? And there was a comment someone said that actually drove home what I wanted to communicate today. The person in trying to address what was perceived as traditional HR was saying that it seems that people are not developing themselves or establishing their mindset to a particular instance where they will understand things that are applicable in the global perspective. Or you see people that because they feel like HR is just anybody can do HR, that's a common notion they have. They find themselves in HR without even understanding what it takes to become a very strategic HR person or a very visible HR person, right? So I'm just going to drive some notions on this HR perspective as it concerns visibility. Now, this is a research that was taken, and I will give you a background of this research. The perspective people, CEOs, they have about HR people. This is a perspective that they have now. Because one of the things I started asking myself as I was doing this research was, why is it that some HR persons, like about 90% of HR professionals, don't even make it to the boardroom? Or 90% of the HR professionals cannot grow into their role, that maybe after HR, they can be recommended for other strategic positions in the office. And it became more like a concern to me. And I began to make some research and I came up with some things. Now, I'm going to just try to explain this. I'm going to try to explain this research now. Now, it says, what do business leaders think about HR contribution to the business? Now, they were trying to just agree, disagree, and people have an opinion. And please, mind you, this research was made by HR professional platform. You have SRHIM and then CPID in the UK, right? So it was made by HR professionals, the various platforms. And now they were trying to understand what business leaders and CEOs, what they think about HR contributions in the business. Now, they said that the first one was, does HR combine commercial and HR expertise? People that agreed was 21%. People that disagreed was 40%. And people that said no opinion, they were like 39%. Right? So the question was, when it comes to human resources, can human resource professionals combine commercial and HR expertise, right? There is that aspect of HR expertise, but when it comes to commercial awareness, when it comes to understanding the business, now, people that agree that HR can combine commercial and HR expertise, they were just 21%. People that disagree, whooping of 40%, and then no opinion, 39%. Now, the next thing that they did was, HR, do they help organizations to become flexible and agile? People that agreed were 27%. People disagreeing, 36%. People of no opinion, that's they are indifferent about it, 37%. Now, this is a question of asking HR, do they help organizations to become flexible and agile? Now, the next one is HR, do they prioritize what matters to HR over wider organization issues? I will say again, do HR prioritize what matters to HR over wider organization issues? People that agree, 52%. People that disagree, 17%. People that said no opinion, they have 30%. Now, the next one they did was, HR fails to address the operational issues facing the organization. They failed to address the operational issues facing the organization. People that agree that they failed to address these operational issues, 44%. People that disagree, 25%. And no opinion, 31%. Now, before I come to the other one now, it seems that, okay, let me just run through the next one now. It comes to HR involvement in business strategy. Now, this is a source from CIPD, one of the top body in UK. They did this research now, right? They said that when it comes to HR leaders and business leaders, right? What is HR involvement in business strategy? So, integral in setting the strategy, HR leaders say that they are 62%, that's rating themselves. But business leaders think that HR, they are not integral in the setting of the strategy. Then involved in communicating the strategy, the HR leaders rated themselves 51%, while the business leaders said it's just 35%, that they are just not so much involved in communicating that strategy. Then in implementing the strategy, HR leaders rated themselves 60%, while business leaders said that it's just 35% when it comes to implementing this strategy. Then senior HR leaders have no involvement. People that think that HR has no involvement in business strategy, HR leaders said 5%, business leaders said 18%. Now, what am I trying to drive home here is that it's time we begin to move past traditional HR and become versatile when it comes to HR operations. Now, even before I might get ahead of myself in driving this point, what I'm just trying to say is that as a HR person, you shouldn't just confine yourself to just HR matters. You are a HR person in an organization running a business. Now, the first priority is that that business needs to make a profit. It needs to sustain itself, right? If it's not sustaining itself, then the business will go down. That means if you're working in a business setting, you need to understand the intricacies of what makes up the business that you are a HR person in. Now, if you go around to ask people, HR professionals, to explain the core business functions of what their businesses do, or to talk about the various products that they have, you will see that many of them don't even have this information about the business that they are the HR professionals in. And this is the challenge. Now, also because most of the HR professionals are not trying to globalize what they do. They're not trying to globalize and see what is obtainable globally. They are restricting themselves to just what they find in a particular setting, right? So this is actually the problem. So the perception out there is that HR, in fact, let me go to that perception. Now, these are some of the perception that people have about HR professionals. Some of this perception is that most CEOs don't think of HR people as business people, right? Few HR people have reached the status of business peer in the minds of CEOs and other senior executives now. The perception of HR is that HR is primarily the police department of an organization that has been difficult to change. Some of this perception is that HR isn't strategic, HR is good at implementation and administration and nothing much else. HR people don't understand business. HR people needs to be proactive and drive business. Now, this is not sentiment, right? This is driven by data. And now the question we are going to start asking ourselves this evening now is that, how strategic are you as a HR person when it comes to business strategy? When it comes to the corporate strategy of your organization, do you understand it? Now, there's something I've learned as a performance management person is that you can't even do an effective performance management if you don't understand the core corporate strategy of your organization. You know, most times if you ask people where does performance management start from, they will tell you that when you begin to maybe ask questions and begin to generate the KPIs. No. Now, before you even get down to KPIs and so many other things, the first leg up there is that for you to even drive an effective performance management system that are going to cascade to become KPIs of people, you must understand what the corporate strategy of that organization is. If you understand the corporate strategy, you're going to now use that corporate strategy to do what? To tie down to the various KPIs that would drive that corporate strategy. But it is quite very unfortunate that most people don't even understand. They work as a HR person, but they don't understand the business side of what the company does. So if you are a HR person, my plea, especially for young professionals, my plea is that you must be commercially aware. You must have a sense of good commercial awareness. You must understand what the business says. You must understand who are your competitions. You must understand what they are doing that you guys are not doing, so that when you're trying to do some things, you reflect it based also from the business perspective. I will give you an instance now. You might be asking yourself, how does this apply to me, or how can I even begin to implement this? One of the things I've learned is that HR, they handle interviews. You will constitute a panel. and you will some HR professionals will just come and they will ask some of the random questions attributed to HR. Tell me about yourself. What do you want in this job and all that, right? So, but you can begin to even go put a step ahead of time. That one thing I do is that if I'm having an interview and it's for a particular role, I go and study that what that role is all about from the business point of view, not from the HR point of view. I'll go and understand. I will even ask the hiring manager to explain some business concepts. So when I'm asking some questions, I'm even tying it down to those business concepts. I'll ask questions concerning the business as it relates to that particular department. Right? I will understand what the product functions are and stuff like that, so that I can have a better perspective, an all-round perspective. Right now, for an instance, I work with an energy company, right? So one of the things I do is to acquaint myself with the various products, with the various terminologies of the energy company. Now, when I also work with startups and some tech companies, as I currently do, right? Before I even start preparing on any solution when it comes to HR, I'll first of all go and read your business corporate strategy to understand the whole business as a whole, and now begin to understand how I'm going to bring in some strategies to do what? To be in terms of, yes, you might call them, I call them business strategies, you might call them HR strategies, but in all conclusion, you understand what the business is all about. So everything you're doing is tied down to the business, and it's also tied down to the people, so that people will begin to see HR as being integral in the business function, and not just say, oh, it's just HR is just there to care about the people. Yes, you are there to care about the people, but sometimes when it comes to even making at the table where some critical decisions are made at the board level, you see that sometimes there is no HR involvement, because most times we've not shown ourselves to be that strategic to even implement some of these board decisions. I'm currently working on a paper that is titled Making a HR Due Diligence Before Acquiring a Company. Now, if you are going to do mergers and acquisition, or if you're going to acquire a company from the legal point of view, right, that is what we know as due diligence. But one thing I've discovered is that when people are making this due diligence, they don't even make the HR due diligence. They don't understand the people. Most people just don't understand some of the HR due diligence that they are meant to make, right? And it's a function of the people that are advising them when it comes to HR matters, because they don't understand the whole business, but they call themselves HR professionals. Yes, we are HR professionals, but it's high time we understood what the concept of the business is all about, what the global concept of HR is all about, that we begin to implement something. So that means that as a HR person, you need to understand finance, you need to understand businesses and stuff like that. So yes, you've gotten your certifications in HR, but why don't you try to take some courses that will give you a general perspective on strategy, on some core financial principles, so that when you're talking about numbers or some of these financial principles, you are not lost. You are able to make some meaningful contribution, because the problem is that sometimes when we gather, or when it is at that highest level and people are making the contribution, because you don't understand what the business is all about, you don't even make suggestions that will concern the people and also concern the business. Because if you have an overview of these things, it will help you to be strategically visible when it comes to the workplace, that whenever decisions are made, you are going to be consulted, because you understand the business aspect of it and the people aspect of it. And I'm going to conclude, the conclusion I'm going to drive in this presentation is, there is this lady, I don't know if, and that's the last point of HR people having commercial and business acumen. Now, there's this lady, I don't know if you're here, if you know them, please, can you just signify if you know this lady, right? Her name is Funke Amobi. If you know her, please, can I get a wave of hand or something? If you know this lady, I'm just going to use her to drive home my points, and then I'll be out of your face this night. Anyone in the, okay, I can see someone raising their hand. Please, if you know her, I'm just going to use her to, I read her story and it was very inspiring. So currently now, Funke Amobi has done about 25 years in HR. She has done so many things, and now currently she works as, I think she's the deputy head of operations at Standard Chartered Bank. And this is almost like she's going through the route of becoming a chief operating officer. Now, at first, when I saw it, it dazzled me a lot that she was first their HR person, right? I think the business culture, I don't know, but she was really a very top professional out there. Now, but currently now she's in operations, she's in core operations. So I went back to read about her, and I discovered that at some point she began to strategically align herself to business operations, to understand what business operations are all about. Now, so that when she's making people decisions, she will also relate it from the business point of view. Now, currently now she works like from her HR perspective, she's now deputy head of operations. Now, that's a big role when it comes even in the banking industry, because you're sharing a lot of things. Now, what I'm just saying that it's not like everybody is going to take this route, but my point I'm trying to make is that as HR professionals, let us begin to see ourselves not just as a HR person, but as a HR person that understands the business, because anything you're doing is still going to be all around the business. So if you're going to make people decisions that are going to impact or have weight in the organization, you need to understand the business. You need to have business acumen. You need to understand things. You need to be commercially aware, so that when it is time to speak the business language, you speak the business language as a HR professional. You speak the business language with those terminologies, and you understand it, and you're able to explain it. Because if you begin to align yourself to this, when you're trying to bring up solutions for the organization, from the HR perspective, people will listen to you because you understand the business and the things you're doing. They are data-driven, they are facts, you understand the financial aspects, the various other aspects, and you're now making those decisions. Because for me, how I see human resources is that we are the cynosure of every operations. So don't just confine yourself to maybe HR or admin or the one. No, begin to strategically position yourself to become a business partner, to understand the businesses, to understand the things that work in the businesses. Maybe even tomorrow in meetings and stuff, you can make contributions, not just from the HR point of view, but also from the business point of view, right? And that is how you begin to strategically place yourself in a visible way that people will begin to recommend you, that people will begin to even, because with this, you can climb in your career. Now, ending it, like I said, I have a background in law. And okay, let me read this quote before I begin to round up. So that HR needs to do more than just understand the business. It needs to make specific connections between business issues and how human capital affects them. Because if you don't understand these business issues, you might not even know how you're going to bring up some policies, like how you're going to develop some policies to even reflect on human capital or the various human issues. You need to understand what the various business issues are. So as you're making the recommendations, you're making it from, you have a general overview, and you're now making a very important recommendation based not just from the HR point of view, but also from the business point of view. Because if you begin to do this, you see yourself begin to climb into that ladder. One thing I want to see is that HR professionals begin to go into the boardroom. They become C-suite professionals, right? They are in the boardroom, they make decisions, they go ahead to become maybe chief human resource officer. They are in the boardroom, or they even become the chief operating officer. I feel like HR professionals, with what they know, can even go ahead to become a COO or even a CEO, right? Because first of all, it will be a big advantage for them because they understand the human aspect of it, which is very, very important. Make no mistake, it's very, very important. But not just that, they also understand the business aspect of it, right? So this is very important, right? So as you're going to do your certifications, there are certifications and courses in project management, in business analysis, in strategy, and all that. Make yourself an all-round HR. Don't limit yourself to traditional HR where you just do this and that, right? That is fine. It's a good place to start. But as you're starting, begin to tell yourself, right, that you can do so many other things when it comes to human resources. And this is how you are going to be visible and how you're going to be irreplaceable. Now, In conclusion, AI is coming. I was discussing with our head of strategy. We were just talking about some things, and he said to me that AI is coming to take over HR. I was like, that's not possible. I was trying to defend my profession, but I understand what he's talking about. That even in recruitment now, there are things you can use for recruitment. There are things you can use for your performance management and stuff like that, right? So, but one thing I'm sure is that if HR professionals begin to think strategically, if they begin to have that commercial awareness and business acumen, right, they will still make policies. Even if they are AIs, they will still make policies surrounding the whole thing, right? They will still be very much valuable in the room, that they will become irreplaceable. Now, like I said, my passion is mostly for young professionals, most times, or even young graduates. I believe in catching them young. So from time to time, I go ahead to engage people, even to set the stage of how to build this visibility so that they can climb in their career. I'm one person that I've been privileged to, based on visibility, the things I've said here, it has helped me to build myself. I'm still building myself because I'm nowhere near. I'm still building myself to get to the likes of the Oluyemes, the Funkes, and the Lara Yekus, and so many of them, the Yemi Fashions and stuff like that, right? We are all striving to build ourselves up to that point, right? But the world is going to change so soon because AI is coming. What was applicable back then might not be applicable again. So you begin to ask yourself, how do I become more visible? How do I become more dominant? How do I become irreplaceable? Now, it is when you begin to align your HR policies, when you begin to align everything that you're doing in line with business operations. When you begin to align these, right, and you begin to make policies that are aligned to these, then you are likely not to be replaceable, because now that means that people understand that you make decisions not just based on the human resource aspect of it, but you understand business operations, and it helps you very well. Now, for me personally, this has worked for me. I know people this has worked. Remember what I said before as we started this presentation? I said that your visibility is as important as your ability. I believe that they go pari passu, right? They go hand in glove, right? One cannot do without the other. Don't just build your ability and not give your ability a platform to be visible, right? We went ahead to talk about the various strategic ways to be visible, having a strategic presence. We went ahead to talk about having a strategic presence, building a strategic for communication skills, and also be known for something. Then, because I know that maybe 80% of people in this room might be HR professionals, now I had to talk about the various HR perspective, the various ways we can be strategic and actually implement a lot of things, not just from the human resource point of view, which is wonderful, make no mistake about it, but also from the business operational point of view. I will end by saying that our competition, right? I normally say this. I see myself that whenever I'm doing something, I don't rate myself with people around me. They can be wonderful, but I always try to rate myself globally. How am I doing when it comes to global standard? And a lot is changing when it comes to global standard of HR. A lot is changing. A lot is changing. If you are currently doing a course on GPHR, you'll see that some of the courses there has to do more with strategy than even the core business operations, because a lot is changing. HR is transforming. Don't be caught up with just the traditional HR. Make sure that you are visible and you're aligning to the business operational HR, which I will call the strategic HR. Thank you very, very much, everybody, for having me. Thank you, Mr. Oluyemi, for this opportunity and platform. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Wow, 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 wow. That was very, very, very engaging, very, very insightful. Thank you so much, thank God, Simon, for sharing so much wisdom, knowledge, and we all need to be visible even as we approach 2024. We would like to take questions, comments, contributions. We'll be excited to hear, maybe you have one or two stories to share with us. I also recognize that we have so many people from different parts of the world. Thank you, Wendy Williams from Coventry, England. We also see different friends and associates. We celebrate everyone. Thank you for joining tonight. If you'd like to ask a question or share your thoughts or comments, we will allow you. First, I will take Kayode. I can see Kayode's hands up. Please unmute. Kayode, I've made you a co-host. You can unmute and express yourself. You have the floor.
Hello, sir. Good evening, sir. And thank you, sir, for the opportunity. I actually joined late, but I actually love the part I got, the part I joined, which was the visibility part as HR professionals in the workplace. For me, I tell people that if you can't be visible in your work, be visible for something else. Now, in my workplace, I'm known for two things. I'm known for the HR part, but I'm an HR officer, so I'm not the HRM. But I'm known for my photography skills. So ask anybody to get to Mortgage Bank, from the security to the cleaner to the MD self. Ask them with the photographer to get to Mortgage Bank, they'll call Kayode. Now, I don't even take pictures with the camera. I take with my phone. So much that I took pictures of our IGM. Even though my director actually paid for photographers to come in, I was paid to take pictures with my phone. I was paid to do that. And aside from that, I'm also known for other things. Currently, I'm to fumigate my office. I took the job. I was when I got the contract. And my dad told me that I was one that got it, even though I used my brand name. So you can be visible with what you do, but if you are in a place that you guys are probably 200 or 400, get something that legally that you do that stand you out. For me, is my photography. For me also is my versatility. For me also is my learning. People see me that, oh, Kayode is one that goes on for almost practically every HR conferences on the status, he posts HR. That's also something that they didn't for. Somebody that my boss is now, a policy was created so that I can promote it. And I should promote it in 2025. But the policy was created so I can promote it next year, which is already in the works already. So that's what I was.
All right. Thank you so much, Kayode.
Yeah, it doesn't. 1 minute, please, a minute. And it's our advice that I want to do it, but probably others can also key to it. Is everybody here going to each department that you have in your office and go and what they do. I said I was going to do it, but I'll try to start it Monday, tomorrow. Or ask anybody just learn what they do so that you can have a broader view of the operations of the entire. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Kayode. Yeah, from my hand, your network was quite blurry. Okay, but I got a good grasp of what you were saying, that in addition to being visible from a professional or core, don't let me say professional, since other things you mentioned are also professional in their own right. From your core job function perspective, Kayode is also saying that you can also be visible through, for example, extracurricular activities or other initiatives or other skills and competencies outside your core work. And I agree to that submission. There's something they say in public relations that just make sure that as much as possible, you are in the news. Because if you are not, even if you are in the news for a bad thing, you are still way better off than not being in the news at all. In other words, so if you're an HR professional and you are not visible because of HR, maybe there are other things in the office, other type of value, business values you can add. Please, by all means, do that. I'm going to take Ahmed next, and then we'll come to Wande. Mr. Ahmed, please, you have the floor.
Good evening, Mr. Oluyemi. Good evening, our facilitator. Good evening, everyone. I'm very happy to be part of this platform tonight, as usual. Mr. Oluyemi, thank you for the good work you are doing. And to our facilitator today, you've really done a very good job. God bless you. My contribution is, as much as we say we are HR, I would like to use myself as an example. I work in the presidency, particularly at the moment, National Salaries, Incomes and Wages Commission. The office is solely responsible for the salaries, allowances, and other welfare packages of all federal government workers, and by extension, general civil service in Nigeria. When I joined them as a compensation officer. I remember we were 83 that sat for that contested for that position, or let me say competed. And to God be the glory, I was the only one that was successful. I didn't know anybody. But becoming a compensation officer then, I saw that there are a lot of things that I could do. Quickly, I went to take my master's in public policy because this office has to do with policy making. Even though it is a compensation matter, you engage a lot of stakeholders, private and public, and whatever you do rubs down to the nation. In view of this, I moved can you hear me, please?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. We are with you.
I moved from that, but the work itself has to do with finances. I read economics. Having completed the master, I quickly went to go and do ICANN so that I could be in the center, because anything that you have to do, it has to be with budgeting. And for you to be in that, to be core professional in that place, your knowledge of finance cannot be overemphasized. So I quickly went to do ICANN. I completed ICANN. Don't forget, it's something that I said has to do with policy, it has to do with budget. Economics is by no means important in budget and budgetary process. I went for MSc Economics. And everybody in my office was like, is it everything you want to know? I said, yes. Because it gives me leverage over all things. Having finished that, World Bank brought a project to our office from ILO. Then there was a course that they did in ABU. ABU is the only university that allows it in Nigeria. Masters in Rural Finance and Entrepreneurship. Because one of the things we are to do in my office is that we are going to be advising government on living standard of people, both in the rural and urban center. For me to be relevant, I went to do that course, making 3 masters. When I came back, I did SPHRI, so that I could now come back to what I was actually recruited to do, which is compensation matter, because this thing covered it. Later, I went to study something on public speaking. How do I speak in the public? As I talk to you today, any program they want to do in the office, they take me as the moderator or rapporteur. If we are many, I must be on it. If we are just one, it must be hammered. I'm not saying this to praise myself, but just like our facilitator tonight said, you must make yourself to know all aspects of the organization. I remember one of the courses we took when we were in SPHRI, business leadership. You must be relevant. You must have deep knowledge. But today, upcoming ones, most of us do not really want to know all these things, but we are following money. By the time I was doing all these things, I was committing my resources. Some of my colleagues did it on 2 occasions because of ICANN exam. I'm not serious. But to God be the glory. He said something that everything he has been enjoying today is required from all chief executives today. That if you want to do that thing, I'm not as tall as when they have described, there is one hammer that will come. When they see me, they say, we expect to see one tall guy. I'm very short when you see me. But to God be the glory, one has been impactful. What I'm trying to say in essence is that we should not rest on the fact that, this is what I was employed to do. No. Try and be jack of all trade and master of all, such that when you are loaded, just like one of our former facilitators said, you cannot be avoided. You cannot be ignored. They will need you. Even when you want to go on leave, they will want to pay for your leave so that you can still stay. I usually run away from work now. When my bosses, I say money cannot replace my life. They will give me the money. But that's it. Let's all at all times up our games in studying further, right? Like in finance, we call it portfolio management. Build portfolio around everything, even what you don't need at all. Even if it's engineering they are doing in your office, tell yourself you're an engineer and you'll be relevant. Thank you, and God bless you, Mr. Oluyemi, our facilitator, and everybody.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ahmed. I'm going to give you some of my heights to add to all the plenty things you have. We are so proud of you, and thank you for what you do. I like
Thank you so much, sir.
You are able to use your professional career and experience, exposure as an example. And I like the fact that everything you went for, it was intentional. You could tie, so you are not doing those courses just for doing sake. You are able to see, for example, it makes a lot of sense if you're a specialist in comp and bend, even though it's HR, to have ICANN. It has a way of even making you more robust, because there's no way you'll be doing compensation and benefit and you'll not be interfacing with finance and accounts. Very, very excellent contribution. I saw one hand up earlier. I don't know, maybe she's shy and she put her hands down, but one day I will call you before Ezine, because I saw your hands up, and Ezine is she's my friend. She can always buy me a bottle of cold kunu or sobo for stepping her down. But we'll come to Ezine, but we'll start with Wande first. Wande, you have the floor, please.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Hi, Mr. Oluyemi. No, I'm not shy. I just thought since you already knew, and so I put my hand down. First, I want to say thank you to the facilitator. It was a very good session. It was it was worth the while. There are times when I join in. First of all, I'm speaking from Coventry, England. My name is Wande, and I'm a HR manager here in England. So it was a very good one. I enjoyed every session. Usually I would have just, logged out after 10 or 20 minutes, but this was a good one and I stayed till the end. Thank you again, the facilitator and Mr. Oluyemi. I just wanted to add, using my experience, having worked as a HR professional in Nigeria, moving over to the UK and then seeing the difference. Just to add to everything the facilitator has said, it's important to work on your personal development as a HR professional, especially when the facilitator mentioned being able to build yourself to be able to thrive globally. When I first moved to the UK, it was tough. HR is a field in the UK that is dominated by whites, the Caucasians. So as a Black person, if you are going to thrive in HR, you have to have it. You must know what you're doing. You must know your stuff. For me, when I knew that I was moving over to the UK, before I left Nigeria, I started working on my CIPD. And trust me, it was tough. Having done CIPM in Nigeria, I knew the difference. I got a mentor. I have a very good mentor in Nigeria. His name is Dr. Oludayo. And then we were working on it together. Even despite the fact that he was my mentor, and he said, one day this thing is hard, it's not easy. But I prepared myself for the journey that I knew that I was coming to. So it's important for you to work on yourself. And it took months of preparation. I came into the UK, I wrote it, and then I became certified. Even with my certification, working from Nigeria, my experience, I had to go back, start from the bottom again when I got to the UK, go back as an administrator. Haven't gotten to a managerial level in Nigeria. I went back again. I became an administrator. A few months after, I became an advisor and then up, and then I'm a manager now. But it's important for you to know that you must work on your personal development. You must know what you bring to the table. You should be able to ask yourself and answer that question. In my place of work, what do I bring to the table? How valuable is my contribution? Be that kind of person that it will be hard to do without. Also, your people skills, especially for those, I get a lot of emails, and then HR professionals send me emails on LinkedIn or messages on LinkedIn and say, oh, I'm moving over to the UK. What's your strategy? What can I do? I try as much as possible to answer. But one major strategy, if you want to be able to function globally, you have to start now working on your people skills. One of the main issues I had when I just started in the UK was my people skills. I thought my people skills was good. I thought I could speak for Nigeria, but I didn't know here it was different. You must be able to join in little conversations. You must be able to contribute even in little conversations. Else they'll tell you you're antisocial. and then they start to stay away from you. You start to have problem if you don't know how to build that rapport with every person. At least those little things, in terms of being empathetic, being understanding, being able to build rapport with other employees is very important. And lastly, it's important to stay up to date with trends beyond Nigeria, globally. I know there are quite a number of people who want to go abroad and function abroad, but you must know what's going on here, even outside HR. When you can contribute even outside HR, it helps you as a person. I just wanted to add this, and thank you once again, facilitator. It was a good one. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that excellent contributions. Well appreciated. We'll go on to Ezinne, then we'll come back to thank God if he has any reflections based on the contributions from the floor. Ezinne, my sister and friend, you have the floor, man. I'm tempted to ask you to put on your don't worry.
No, don't ask me. No, I'm not in facilitator mode tonight. And yes, I'll take you up on that offer of buying you kunu. So don't worry, that's by design. But thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, TG, for that amazing presentation. I mean, not that I haven't tried to attend others, but when I saw TG's name, let me just say, I said, I will attend this, and I am happy I did. I mean, for those of us that have been in HR for a while, I mean, it doesn't mean that visibility is also not important. So sometimes you have to do a stock of, how your year also has been and, do some review. So like I said in my comments, it's something to take note of as we go into 2024. Incidentally, as I was listening to this, I was reading a tweet about creating your vision board for the new year. So these are things that we need to put in place. Yes, you might have been visible for 2023, but maybe there are things you need to take stock of on what do I do to improve myself, improve my visibility? How do I put myself more out there? How am I going to be more strategic about this? So thank you so much, TG, for that. One thing I'd like to add, and I love that One Day spoke right before me because she touched on some of these things. Yes, as much as you're building your visibility around your competence, it's very important to also add on the soft skills, because you can be known or you can be visible for how great you are at what you do. But if the other things, you're not well-rounded, yes, when you put yourself out there, you might put yourself out there so much, but people might be hesitant to, want to do things with you when they see that you're lacking on those other things. I'll give an example. Integrity. The thing about this thing is that people are watching you and you probably don't even know. You might know, you might not know. I've had a couple of examples of where I have worked, and after a while, people would have told me, "Oh, we're considering you for this role because we've watched the way you do things." So when you're putting yourself out there, I'm not saying do eye service, but also build on those soft skills part of yourself. Like One Day said, your people skills. If you're especially whether you're setting yourself up, to be relevant globally or locally, people skills are important. What's your cultural IQ? If you're having to deal with people of other nationalities, the way you would relate with people in Nigeria, the way you relate to other nationalities. So you have to know how to be able to deal with people accordingly. And those are those other things that might be seemingly minute, but they're very important. So as you're building your visibility as a person of competence, also, pack on those soft skills, because those are the things that really matter a lot more, to be honest, as you climb up the ladder. So yeah, I just thought to add that in there. Thank you so much for this. Thank you so much, Yemi, for the platform. Thank you so much, everyone.
All right. Thank you so much, Ezinne, for that excellent contribution, quite apt and eloquently put together. So I'll bring TG back so that he can maybe weigh in on some of the thoughts that have been shared and any of the additional closing thoughts. But just to put it out there by way of my own 2 cents to this contribution, speaking to visibility, there are multiple things that can help you to be visible. Quite a number has been shared tonight by our able facilitator, and some additional ones have also been put out there by our contributors tonight. But I'll give you one more channel. If you can teach something in HR or around HR, come and teach it on HR mentorship. That's visibility. I'll give you 1 or 2 examples, but I won't mention it due to privacy. Somebody through this platform, for example, did one webinar. And that same week, he got 2 jobs just by doing a webinar here. Visibility. If you know something and you teach others, that's also part of visibility. I'll mention 1 or 2 other examples. Some of us, we are, for example, in CIPN or SPHR or something, and they will be doing maybe get together, doing, parties, social events, and you don't attend. Trainings are important, but social events are also important. These are also platforms for visibility. Maybe some of you are invited to a birthday or something at work. If you can attend, I'm not saying attend everything. Sometimes the platform for visibility may not be the job. It may be through an offline event. Maybe your key vendor or your key supplier or your key client is doing something. And as HR, you attend. You don't leave it only to the people in sales. Those kind of things help with visibility, just to add that. So TG, thank you so much. I must commend this session for 2 reasons. First, of course, I'm always putting out there if anyone wants to share. And TG reached out to me that I wanted to share, but he went 1 step further. Most people tell me to give them topic or walk around existing topics we've dropped. TG gave me the topic, and I didn't even tweak it at all. That's visibility. Over to you, my brother.
All right, thank you very much, sir, and thank you to everyone that's contributed. I had to see Z. Z is someone I admire so much. Thank you also Wande and other persons that contributed. And you guys have been apt in the contribution. So I would just end by saying this. One thing I've learned is you can't say no to what your talent or your job can say yes to. And what do I mean by this? I will say it again. You can't say no to what your talent or your job can say yes to. So when you're building visibility, you begin to see yourself as a consultant. Whatever you do, you can teach it. You can build a business around it. Yes, you're doing your 9-to-5 job. I understand that. But as a HR person, it's even more. In fact, anything you do, I don't even limit it to HR. You can teach it. You can consult for it. People can pay you extra money for it by how intentional, by how visible you are for it. And that is my passion, because I feel like we can actually develop ourselves to become a reference point that people can use when they want to do so many other things, right? So, and you see people, before now, I used to wonder why people pay for so much for trainings. And I'll say this, growing up, there was time, somebody paid a training for me to attend a knee Adesanya training, and he paid 250,000. This was in my final year in school. I was like, wow, if they gave me this money now, I know what it would have done for me, right? But now, that training was one of the trainings that changed my mindset. The people I met there, that was when I discovered that people don't even pay for trainings because they want to come and learn. They want to come and get network and enhance their visibility. Now, and yes, they will get to learn some things, but there are so many other things that they come for the trainings for. And that is it out there, guys. I feel like we can do so much more. We can be out there to make so much impact, because I always tie it to impact, and I always tie it to purpose, right? So that whatever we are doing, our impact is always felt. So thank you very much, everyone. And thank you, Mr. Oluyemi, once again, for giving me your platform. It's been an awesome one, and I'm so privileged to be here. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to call it a wrap tonight. If you want to say thank you, I've given permission to everybody. You can unmute and say thank you, or good night, or good evening, as the case may be. Ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. Good night. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, TG. God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you, TG.
Thank you, TG. Beautiful session.
Madam Badaura, good
Thank
evening.
you very much. Thank you so much for the insightful lesson.
Thank you, my brother. I see you, sir.
Thank you, Oluyemi. Very beautiful session and very insightful.
YTV.